we're back. Seamless transition, because this is also about Hollywood. Well, I say Hollywood. I don't know. Is TikTok stardom, is that equivalent to Hollywood? Why Charli D'Amelio cut off her parents by Brett Cooper.
Well, the TikTok famous Demilio family is currently in the spotlight due to accusations that the parents, Mark and Heidi Demilio, were stealing money from their daughter, Charli. Now, Charli...
Sorry, I was actually surprised the first time I had heard that. So, no, it does feel a little bit like, I guess the question is, like, does this type of thing reflect to some extent on the character of the individual involved, or would all of us be as bad in that scenario? Because I do need to think, like, the question as to whether or not you would do a thing when you're a poor person has a lot to do with whether or not it's possible to do that thing. But when you get more money, the question becomes, should you? Should you do that thing? Not if you can do that thing, but should you? It becomes more of an, like, I think as a person who's comparatively impotent, you can afford to be a lot more ethical than moral. You can afford to allow society around you to govern what you're allowed to do and what you can do. Whereas, like, the more power you gain, like, the notion of power makes you more of what you are, but I think the more power you gain, the more you have to decide, okay, so now I can do this thing. Should I do this thing? You have to, like, derive moral codes that limit your action, if that makes sense. It doesn't do to just be an ethical individual anymore. You have to start becoming more moral, more self-motivated morality there, if that makes sense. So again, I don't know if I would like to think I would do better than that. Like, you wouldn't steal from your family, you wouldn't let your family be torn up by money, but I don't know.
Ties with her family and their businesses, and Mark is running defense, very intentionally trying to protect the family brand versus trying to just...
Of course he is.
...be a dad to his daughter, who is obviously very hurt and very angry. Now, I do not know, I have no
dastardly fiend
concrete information about whether money was actually stolen from Charli, but these two teenage girls, Charli and Dixie, being exploited is the least shocking thing.
So is she the one saying that? Is Charli D'Amelio the one saying that her father is stealing? Is that what's going on?
Of the century, and we all watched it happen. For those of you who were not renegading and making fluffy coffees back...
I was not. I'm proud to say I had more dignity than it. I heard about TikTok stuff from other people. I don't know if I really got into TikTok itself that much. Although I have gotten into, like, shorts, which is roughly equivalent. I try not to. For the sake of my mental and attention span and intellect, I prefer not to get into shorts, but, you know, I confess. I sometimes fail in that regard. I try not to doom scroll that much, though. So, you know, I'm not as bad as those people.
On TikTok in 2020, let me give you a rundown on the Demilio family. So Charli, the youngest daughter, she started her TikTok back in 2020 when she was just 15 years old. Now, over the first couple of weeks, maybe months of her account, she racked up millions of followers, was going viral. She went on to be the most followed and highest paid TikTok star coming.
Here's a question. What caused that old, like, vampire look that people would get in their eyes? And at some point, that just kind of disappeared. I'm not sure exactly why. Like, what caused it in the first place, and what... Was it just, like, the flash or whatever would... Like, I don't know what exactly was doing that.
Out of COVID. Like, you might remember, you know, there was Charli, there was Addison Rae, but, like, Charli D'Amelio, she was that girl. And she was earning more than $10 million a year by 2021. Now, after she started blowing up thanks to all of her dance videos on TikTok, her older sister Dixie also made an account on TikTok. She became famous, and for most of their careers up until relatively recently, they were in pretty much every video together. They kind of became this package deal. Before they got famous, their dad, Mark, was working as a salesman. He was in marketing for clothing brands, and then their mom, Heidi, was pursuing modeling, and she was doing personal training. But as soon as...
Forehead. Sorry. That's catty, but...
brands, and then their mom, Heidi, was...
Yeah, I don't know. She's not, like, ugly, per se, but she does have a rather prominent forehead. In that photo especially, perhaps.
Pursuing modeling, and she was doing personal training. But as soon as the girls blew up on TikTok, Heidi redirected her career and she launched a YouTube channel that was purely
just like the Kardashians. I guess I don't know if it's exactly like the Kardashians. I don't keep up with the Kardashians. Ha ha ha. Sorry, but this does seem like there might be kind of an archetype of parents of famous child stars or whatever the crap being weird.
Dedicated to being Charlie and Dixie's mom. Totally normal behavior. Now, around that time, they also packed up their things. Mark quit his job. They moved from their Connecticut suburb to Los Angeles into a
Like, I don't know if it's necessarily something I would think is, like, terrible. Like online careers are viable, but also on some level, I think it would be better to retain one's normalcy if you just kind of went on about your life rather than, hey, let's uproot everything and jump into this with both feet. Like, I don't know. It's kind of like that. The whole notion is like part of why people probably like you is the type of down-to-earth lifestyle you lead, and that making you relatable on some level. There's a lot of intangibles involved with that. Whereas if you uproot yourself and put yourself in a completely, artificially in wealthy environment, a burgeoning economy of some faraway place or something like that, where there's all sorts of rich and famous people, you will become a different person, and consequently you might not be as appealing to those people you were initially appealing to. So, like, again, might just be best to keep on trucking with what you're doing and do that as well.
multi-million-dollar home as they launched the Demilio family brand. And at this point, things were moving really fast, and within a year of the girls starting their TikToks, the whole family signed to UTA, which is one of the biggest agencies out there. And in an interview, Heidi, the mom, said, quote, "These agents saw more than just two young girls posting on TikTok. They saw a full plan of our family and what could be, and they sort of painted that picture for us. So that's why they moved to LA. That is why they signed with this huge agency, not
LA sucks. It's the Gomorrah of America.
To direct.
New York is the Babylon. Or Babel. Both work.
The careers of their young daughters who were dancing online, who were getting super famous. No, they...
Yeah, sometimes you just want to close your eyes and wait for an earthquake. Sorry, that's a bit extreme, but it does feel like a lot of the crap that is in America comes out of that delightful place.
Signed with the agency who said, we're going to make your entire family famous. And so I'm saying all of this to show you that from the jump, it was not just about Charlie. It was not just about Charlie and her virality and her love of dance and wanting to share that to people. It was about the family and how the family could benefit from those hundreds of millions of followers. Anyway, moving on from there, this plan for the family started to take shape, and they went on to launch multiple brands. They started a popcorn line. They created a women's...
Sorry, I glitched out there for a second.
Daughters who were dancing online, who were getting super famous. No, they signed with the agency who said, we're going to make your entire family famous.
There might have been some self-interest involved there.
And so I'm saying all of this to show you that from the jump, it was not just about Charlie. It was not just about Charlie and her virality and her love of dance and wanting to share that to people. It was about the family and how the family could benefit from those hundreds of millions of followers. Anyway, moving on from there.
You can't really fault people, I guess, for being ambitious, but it does feel a little bit, like, ghoulish. I say ghoulish, that's probably the wrong word. It does feel a little bit like carrion crow behavior. Especially with regards to, like, your own children, to just be, like, to kind of crowbar yourself in and, no, I want to be a part of this too. Like,
this plan for the family started to take shape, and they went on to launch multiple brands. They started a popcorn line. They created a women's shoe line. They did 3 seasons of a reality.
Those are terrible shoes. Well, I guess I don't know. Maybe women like them. They're fluffy. Uggs are the ugliest thing on earth, but for whatever reason, they still sell.
Show with Hulu, and Charlie's net worth alone ended up being more than $43 million. But that reality show that they did with Hulu, all about their family being a
Eat the rich
TikTok family, could have been the worst decision.
Wait, what is it? Eat the super rich, the super ultra wealthy rich. That's really like there's a whole genre of millionaires that are very eager to crack down on the billionaires, as incongruous as that seems.
That they made because it pulled back the curtains on this family and what they were driving these girls to do. And so when Daily Mail posted an expose on the Demilios back in February, no one was really surprised. So the headline read, quote, "They treated her like a cash cow. Why TikTok star Charli D'Amelio has cut her parents and sister out of her life, as insiders tell Molly."
So wait. Her sister is also into this? Because I would have thought her sister is kind of whatever in her own right. They were both making the videos, right? Maybe she's just not as popular or something. I don't know.
Clayton, that's the writer, how she was, quote, aggressively sexualized and exploited by her family. And one part of the article
I could see it.
reads, they seem really...
Not like in a weird incestuous way. I'm saying, like, I could see them wanting her to do things in order to help with the brand or with the popularity crap.
Toxic, and they pushed her to work so much, one source tells me. Her parents treated her like a cash cow. This is a teenager who was taken advantage of for money by her already rich parents, leaving her aggressively sexualized and massively hated online for having the maturity of a teenager. And that, if you missed the whole COVID era TikTok, like rise of Charli, that was always a...
Well, I had never known she was hated. I guess everyone that's popular probably has their own category of hated, but I guess I don't know if that was that a thing? I didn't really know they existed, mostly. It's like a genre of TikTok stars that I don't know if I really know what they are or...
big deal in her life because she was this 15-year-old girl that accidentally blew up. She was a competitive dancer doing, jazz, ballet, that sort of thing. She was lip syncing to songs and making videos with her friends. She blew up like crazy. She started having this massive career and people would criticize her for being a teenager. And obviously you can argue that now if you were in the spotlight, if you have this big career, the standards are higher, you need to be a bit more mature. But the argument on the other side is that did she ever really want that? Maybe she just wanted to make videos with her friends and just be a 15, 16-year-old girl and not have this massive weight on her shoulders. Now, another quote in the article reads, ironically, they thought that the reality show was the right thing to do, but it showed a lot of issues that the families had, and their parents are extremely fame hungry, one insider tells me. They were constantly trying to force Charli to do things that she didn't want to do, simply because it would bring in more money and fame. They honestly seemed way more desperate for fame and attention than Charli ever was, and it was them trying to push the...
I'm not, again, I guess I don't know. I feel like people who have actual talent. Well, I don't know if she even has really talent, but I don't know.
Themselves as the next.
I know what I'm trying to say there.
Kardashians. And all of this is very ironic because now we're kind of seeing the second iteration of this with Alex Earle and her family's reality show. But the difference here is that Alex Earle drove her entire career. She was a college student. She started making videos kind of like Charli, accidentally blew up. Her sister then also got involved and was making videos, but her family, for the most part, stayed on the outside. Her dad, when she would ask for business advice, would step in, but he was not clamoring to be on camera. Her mom and her stepmom were not going like, let me into the TikTok. They were kind of these side characters. And as her brand has grown, as has theirs, interest and intrigue into her, blended family grew, then they created this reality show and it has felt really genuine because the star...
It's a case of it doing the right thing. There's a question like whether the exception disproves the rule in stars like that. I still would tend to think like, I don't know how well it would generally do writ large.
Star of the show has continued to be Alex, and she has been driving the entire thing, not the parents going, go do this, I don't care if you're tired, you have to do it because we are going to make money.
Yeah, I just feel like in general the notion of the parents getting like heavily involved in the fame and the fortune and all that crap is probably a bad idea. I don't know, it just feels like it wouldn't maybe tend to work well if they get into it a lot.
And because of that, kind of bringing this back to this quote about them being the next Kardashians, the Demilios now are falling out of relevancy. Like, this is the one thing that's keeping them relevant. And the Earls are being called the next Kardashians. So, food for thought there. Anyway, fast forward.
So apparently they weren't there long enough to make their mark because they're not being called the next Demilios. They're being called the next Kardashians. The Kardashians are still kind of a thing, right? Like, they're not really as popular, but I think they kind of... I don't know if they would have their shows as much, but I think they have a lot of clothing brands and crap.
to last month, just a couple weeks ago, and a source leaked to Demois, and that is the big famous, Hollywood gossip site, that the rift in their family was allegedly, because Heidi and Mark were stealing money from Charlie. And this is what that post said. Sources allege that TikTok and Broadway star Charlie Demilio discovered millions of dollars had been transferred out of accounts that were established during the years her career was managed by her parents. Insiders claim that the transfers allegedly occurred over an extended period and involved funds that were intended for Charlie's savings. According to sources, Charlie became aware of the situation after her parents were allegedly supposed to be removed from certain accounts. The matter
so this is according to Charlie, but
occurred over an extended period and involved funds that were intended for Charlie's savings. According to sources, Charlie became aware of the situation after her parents were allegedly supposed to be removed from certain accounts. The matter is now reportedly in the hands of attorneys. Sources further allege that the dispute has caused a major rift within the family.
Well, she's not like insane like Britney Spears or whatever the crap, right? This isn't going to be another one of those things, is it?
With Charlie's sister Dixie Demilio reportedly siding with their parents. All
okay. So that's why it happened.
Allegations remain unverified. Allegedly is what they're trying to say here. But that one post back in May blew the entire story open. Now, almost immediately, Mark Demilio, the father, the self-proclaimed CEO of the Demilio family, rushed in.
Yeah. That's what all confident men do. Give them a title. Give themselves a title.
To protect the brand. And he commented this. He said, "No one called me for an interview. This is not true. We love Charlie, but she is being manipulated and I have the receipts. Over the last 6 years, we have remained silent and never addressed gossip, but the time has come to set the record straight." Now, before we move on to his next comment, I just have to say, that could possibly be the funniest thing I have ever heard. Oh, he stayed silent. He wasn't addressing things. Like, sir!
Again, I don't know what was going on, sir. Maybe they were talking their heads off about crap.
You had your family star in a reality show. You were doing interviews constantly about being their dadager. You started a women...
Okay. Put him in jail. He said dadager. I hate people who create cutesy words. There was one I was hearing recently. Oh, don't know. Totes is one I hate. It's totally a jackass. For reals. That's also that isn't even like a shortening. That's not a contraction. That's just a stupid phrase.
High heel shoe line and a popcorn brand with your daughters. It's weird, but sure, you're just in the background. You're just staying silent. Now, I personally am not going to stay silent about Angel's
Don't call me on that, because I'll probably be hypocritical on it at some point. But I just in general, I do hate the creation of cutesy words or whatever the crap.
Studios. And for America's 250th birthday, you need to know about their new film, Young Washington.
I thought she was gonna. I didn't think she was gonna shill it, but there was a whole kerfuffle over the whatchamacallit, Animal Farm movie. And for just FYI, I'm pretty sure Angel Studios didn't actually make that themselves, but they did produce it. It was made by Andy Serkis, who I think is or was a member of the Socialist Party, so, the perfect person to be making a critique of socialism in story form. Like, I guess in my mind, like, it's understandable that Hollywood would never want to represent Animal Farm as it was originally intended, because it was kind of a bit of a dark story. Like, that kind of whole genre of, like, fable. This is a scenario in which I would actually be okay with them trying to teach kids, ubiquitous, tales of morality, right? Well, I guess, I don't know. Maybe it is more niche. I don't know. I think it was kind of a critique of communism. So maybe that's a bit more niche, but it does feel like there were a lot of standard universal morals embedded in there, and the notion of, like, I feel like Disney these days, they don't have that in them. They don't have any sort of, like, scathing bone in their body. They can't deliver that type of old school fable vibe. They have, like, nice, happy messaging. Be kind or some crap like that. So, like, for them to actually do Animal Farm as it was originally intended, I could understand that not being a thing that they would be into. Just the modern animation, children's film in general wouldn't probably be into that, but still. It feels like they kind of, I didn't watch it, but by all accounts, they kind of butchered the original thing they had going on.
Now, Angel Studios and the Wonder Project, which is partnered with Amazon Prime, have joined forces to tell the story of George Washington before the presidency, when he was just a young man facing failure.
As a young lumberjack, I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay.
And war and near-death experiences that all shaped him into the man that we know and now revere. And what is so refreshing about young Washington and what Angel Studios has done with it is that this is not a cynical or revisionist version of history. It is a bold, unapologetically American.
Here's a question. With regards to the whole presidency only being like, you only run twice, is that just like some sort of unspoken rule, or is that actually law? I would have thought that would have been a thing that you literally couldn't do, because people are getting all into a tizzy about Trump running for a fourth or for a third term. Like, I assume that that's not something that would, either just because it's so unusual, I don't know if it would really either work or should work or could work. Like, is that, like, that's something we should look up sometime.
Story about courage and leadership and sacrifice and the forces that preserved Washington at a pivotal point in his history and in our history. And because this is America's 250th birthday, a brother who worked on this film, and I could not be more is about them and protecting them and their ensure that you are getting your lowest rate with some policy starting a quote response to all of this. Application times may vary, rates may vary. Anyway, ethos.com/Brett, quote at ethos.com/Brett. Again, that is ethos, ethos.com/Brett to redeem that offer. Application times may vary, rates may vary. Anyway, back to Mark Demilio and his response to all of this. He went on
stoic
in another comment and said, she has always had a team in place. Lawyers, business managers, manager, agent. We purposefully set it up that way. Not sure if you know anything about our family, but we were doing fine before TikTok. So essentially,
which is why they, well, like I said, it feels like he's acting like we didn't need this crap. Like, you chose, sire, you chose to uproot your entire family and move them to LA. Like, you can't act like this wasn't a big thing for you. You chose to quit your job. You chose to orient your entire life around this crap. And you're acting like it's just like, no, that it was no, we were doing fine before. Like, yeah, sure.
Saying we didn't need her money. We were doing fine. But the thing is, you might not have needed her money or the fame, but you certainly wanted it. And those are
that's perhaps true.
Two very different things. Now, from there, just a couple of days after, Mark decided to double down on a live stream, which was possibly the most defensive guilty live stream I have ever seen. And he said that everything he did as their dadager was so that they could have a better future, be set up for life, and he wanted to be clear that he did not make them do anything that they didn't want to do.
There's a point to be made where it feels like sometimes assertive personalities are not well paired with non-assertive personalities, where a person can think they're like, I don't know, there's a world in which I think a person could think they're suggesting a thing, but since they're an assertive person and the other person is incapable of standing up for themselves in that relationship, it's like, it's just perhaps unfortunate sometimes. But maybe that's not the case here. Maybe he literally just was forcing them to do things or actively coercing them in some regard. I would say with regards to anyone's parents, there's a degree of respect there that kind of makes it a little bit goofy with regards to the psychological dynamics. So I don't know, like, to what extent you would actually say that. To what extent you could actually say that, unless they're actually, like, out on their own and you still have a communication, but they don't live under your roof. They're not under your control.
The hard part is, like, you see opportunity that I never had as a kid, but I also saw the other dads. Like, you know, I heard about Michael Jackson's dad and these crazy dads that just push their kids. I never did that. I wanted them to
because Michael Jackson's dad was black. Racist.
Create businesses and things that gave them opportunity.
He never wanted to be like a black man.
Do whatever they wanted when down the road, and that was it. And if I'm a bad guy for setting my kids up for success.
Okay, is this how it's supposed to be? This is spelled backwards, right? It says Dixie.
And putting them in places where they can make a lot of money. I mean, we're living the dream. That's it.
We're living...
Again, you're acting like we were doing fine, but we're living the dream.
The dream on the back of my, at the time, 15-year-old daughter. It shouldn't be about you.
Like, even that, just in and of itself, the fact that you quit your job and you are now, like, she knows this, presumably, that you guys are utterly dependent upon her as a source of income for this. It feels like, just on principle, that is a lot of pressure to put on a kid in general. Probably not a good idea in general. Again, like, you probably should have kept your job. So, like, this is something she could do if she wanted, but she knew she had other options, I guess.
This whole, deflecting the blame, sue me if I wanted them to make millions of dollars, that shouldn't matter. If she's making money in the moment, that's great. Put it in her savings. But you were obviously trying to increase that wealth, increase your wealth, and also your fame. And he brings up, celebrity dads like Michael.
All right. That's Charli D'Amelio. You can look up the rest of this if you want. Why Charli D'Amelio cut off her parents by Brett Cooper. All right. I should probably wait longer to do these videos. I also feel a little bit bad because the other day I'd used a Whitest Kids You Know sketch at the beginning of one of my videos. I feel bad enough that I probably will try to do better about, like, at least not using the whole sketch, but I pretty much used the whole sketch that time. So I'll have to bear that in mind. Try not to do it again. All right.